I took a solo hiking trip because I wanted silence. No notifications. No people. No rules. At least that is what I believed when I stepped past the trailhead and let the trees close in behind me. The forest felt calm at first. Too calm. The kind of quiet that presses against your ears and makes you aware of your own breathing. I remember thinking how ancient it felt. Not untouched. Undisturbed. The deeper I went, the stronger the feeling became. That pressure. Like eyes on my back. The forest was not empty. It was aware. And without knowing it, I broke one of its edicts on the very first day. That was when everything changed. That was when the forest noticed me. I am not reckless. I need to make that clear. I was not chasing attention or trying to prove anything. I work a desk job. Emails. Deadlines. Screens that never turn off. Every day felt the same. Wake up. Scroll. Work. Scroll again. Sleep. Even when nothing was happening, my phone still buzzed like my brain had forgotten how to be quiet. So I decided to disappear for a while. No signal. No deadlines. Just distance. I chose a stretch of forest most people avoided. Not a park with gift shops or guided tours. Something older. Something quieter. The kind of place locals mention briefly and then change the subject. Dense trees. Long shadows. Trails that do not show up clearly on maps. And I prepared. I packed enough food for a full week. Water purification tablets. A GPS unit. A compass. Paper maps sealed in plastic. Bear spray. Emergency flares. A satellite beacon. I filed a detailed route plan with a friend and told them exactly when to call for help if I did not check in. This was not a social media stunt. I did not want to be seen. I wanted to be alone. The first day felt exactly right. Cool air. The smell of pine and damp earth. Sunlight breaking through the canopy in soft, uneven lines. The trail was narrow, but clear, worn down by boots and time. Every step deeper felt like shedding weight I did not realize I was carrying. A few miles in, I passed an old wooden sign near the edge of the trail. No official markings. No rules. Just weathered wood and a symbol carved deep into it. Geometric. Intentional. Not decorative. I took a photo out of curiosity. Later that afternoon, I stopped in a small town for supplies. One gas station. One diner. The kind of place where everyone looks up when the door opens. When they asked where I was headed, and I said the name of the forest, the mood shifted. Not fear. Discomfort. One man told me to stay on the trail. Another said I should not be out there after sunset. A woman behind the counter shook her head and said that place does not like being disturbed. They did not call it dangerous. They called it old. I laughed it off. Thanked them. Assumed it was local superstition. Stories people tell to make ordinary places feel special. But on the drive back, I noticed the radio losing signal faster than it should have. The road narrowed. The trees leaned closer together, as if closing ranks. By the time I stepped back onto the trail, the light had already begun to change. And for the first time since I arrived, I felt it again. That pressure. Like something waiting patiently for me to go just a little deeper. The forest went quiet. Not peaceful quiet. Predator quiet. No birds. No insects. Just my breathing. And the sound of footsteps. That were not mine. At first I told myself it was just the terrain. Sound travels strangely in the woods. A branch snapping far away. can trick your brain into hearing something human. I had read enough survival forums to know how easily fear fills silence. But this was not a single sound. It was pacing. A soft and deliberate crunch in the leaves. Always landing just after my own steps. Not close enough to see. Not far enough to ignore. Like whatever it was had learned. The exact distance needed to keep me uncertain. I stopped walking. The footsteps stopped. I stood there holding my breath, listening so hard my ears began to ring. Nothing. Then from deeper in the forest came one more step. Slow. Careful. As if it was testing whether I would run. A cold sensation moved down my spine. Before my mind accepted it, my body already knew the truth. I was not alone. I checked my GPS. Weak signal, but still active. I looked at my compass out of habit. The needle would not settle. It drifted. It shook. Then it pointed firmly in a direction that did not match the trail at all. I tapped the casing. I tried again. Same result. I knew enough to be frustrated rather than panicked. Compasses fail. Technology fails. But nothing near me should have caused this. And the longer I stood still, the heavier the air felt.
Not thick.
Not humid. Heavy. Like the forest itself was pushing back against my presence. I started walking again, keeping my pace steady, pretending I was not listening for someone else moving with me. A few minutes later, the trail changed. Not gradually. Instantly. One moment the path was clear. Packed dirt. Exposed roots. Familiar and human. The next moment it was gone. Brush swallowed it. Ferns covered it. Fallen branches blocked the way in a pattern that looked intentional. There was no storm damage. No erosion. No reason the trail should disappear within a few steps. I turned around. Behind me the trail still existed, clear and untouched. Ahead of me the forest looked wrong, like the edges of reality had softened. I took 2 steps forward. The brush shifted. Not from wind, from movement. Something had just passed through. I stepped back without thinking. My boot struck stone. I looked down. A cairn. A stack of rocks balanced carefully. Waist high. Then I noticed another. And another. They were not random. They formed a line running parallel to the trail, leading deeper into the forest, disappearing between the trees. The warnings from the locals returned in fragments. Stick to the trail. Do not stay past sunset. That place does not like being disturbed. I did not touch the stones. I did not step closer. Something about them felt protected, not sacred in a religious way. More like a boundary you do not see until you cross it. My skin crawled. I took out my phone to take a photo. The screen flickered, then went dark. No warning. No error. Just dead. I pressed the power button. Nothing. That was when I noticed my thoughts felt scattered. Not panic. Not confusion. Distraction. Like the forest was filling my head with static. I forced myself to slow down, to check the basics. Water. Food. Direction. Time. I checked my watch. The time was wrong. Not minutes. Hours. I tried to reconstruct the day. I had started early. I had eaten. I should have had plenty of daylight left. But the light filtering through the trees had changed. It was dimmer, colder, like the sun was farther away than it should have been. Then I heard it again. Footsteps. Closer. Not behind me. To my left. Slow crunching steps. Circling. My heart began to race. My mouth went dry. I wanted to shout. To demand someone answer. To make the situation real and human again. But something deeper than thought warned me not to break the silence. I turned my head slowly. Between two trees I saw movement. A shape. Too tall. Too still. I only saw it for a moment before it slipped behind the trunk, folding itself into shadow. But that moment was enough. It was not an animal. Animals do not hide like that. Animals do not wait. Then very softly something whispered my name. Not from behind. Not from the side. From ahead. From the direction where the trail had disappeared. It said my name the way someone speaks when they are trying not to scare you. Like it wanted an answer. My throat tightened. My body locked in place. I did not speak. I did not move. And the forest around me seemed to hold its breath. Waiting. To see whether I would obey. The rules were not written anywhere. No signs. No warnings. No guidebooks. They were learned. The hard way. Every broken edict was answered. I began recording them, not because I wanted to understand the forest, but because forgetting felt like an invitation to die. The longer I stayed, the clearer it became that the forest was not reacting to me. It was enforcing something older than memory. Something agreed upon long before trails were cut, before names were given, before people learned to lie about what they had seen out here. There was a presence. Constant. Patient. Absolute. I came to think of it as the warden. Others might call it the old green or the listener. It was not evil. It did not rage or hunt. It simply observed and corrected. Mercy was not part of the arrangement. Rule 1: never take anything from the forest. I learned this rule the day I pocketed a stone. It was smooth, oval, and warm, despite the cool air. I picked it up without thinking, the way you pick up shells at a beach. It fit perfectly in my palm. Comforting. Familiar. I told myself I would drop it later. That night my pack felt heavier. Not physically. Something else. Like a tension. When I reached for the stone, my fingers came away damp. The warmth was gone. In its place was a slow pulse, as if the rock had learned my heartbeat and decided to keep it. I did not sleep. Branches creaked all night, circling the camp just beyond the firelight. When dawn finally came, I threw the stone as far as I could into the undergrowth and said, I was sorry. I said it out loud. By morning there were footprints around my tent. Bare. Human-shaped. Too many. Rule 2: if you hear your name, do not answer. The forest learned voices quickly. At first, it tried my own. My name carried on the wind, thin and uncertain. Then it improved. It borrowed voices I trusted. My sister. An old friend. A man I served with years ago. each one perfect down to the smallest irritation, the pauses, the breath between syllables. Hey, it would say gently, you are going the wrong way. The worst part was not the sound. It was the familiarity. The way my body leaned toward it before my mind could intervene. The one time I whispered back, just a reflex, barely a sound, the forest went still. Not quiet. Still. As if everything was listening. Something stepped closer than it ever had before. I learned then that silence was obedience. Rule 3: do not disturb the stone markers. The cairns were boundaries. They did not mark trails. They marked permission. I mapped them in my head as I walked. Lines, arcs, incomplete circles. Some were old, sunk into the earth. Others looked new, their stones clean, sharp, edged, as if recently arranged. I found one that had been knocked over. The ground inside the circle was dark and wet, even though it had not rained. The soil moved slightly when I stared too long, like a chest rising and falling.
That not.
Something heavy walked the perimeter of my camp. It never crossed into the firelight. It did not need to. Its shadow was enough. At sunrise, I rebuilt the cairn with shaking hands. When I finished, the forest exhaled, and the footsteps stopped. Rule 4: never follow a trail that was not there before. The forest rearranges itself. Paths appeared where none had existed, wide, clean, inviting. Easier than the route I had been following. They curved gently out of sight, promising shortcuts and relief. I followed one once. The air thinned immediately. My breath sounded wrong in my ears. My compass spun, then went slack, as if it had given up. Behind me, the old trail faded into nothing. Ahead, the trees leaned inward, forming an arch like a throat. I backed away, slowly, apologizing with every step. When my boot left the path, it collapsed into brush, vanishing as if it had never been. I do not know what would have happened if I kept going. I do not want to know. Rule 5: if you feel watched, you are. Stop moving. This rule saved my life. Being watched in the forest is not paranoia. It is pressure. A weight behind the eyes. A certainty that something tall and still is blocking out the sky. The first time I ignored it. Branches snapped behind me. The second time, breath brushed the back of my neck, slow, curious, damp. The third time I stopped. I did not turn. I did not run. I stood still and let my fear burn itself out. Whatever was there passed me by. Close enough that leaves brushed my jacket. Close enough that I smelled rot and sap and something older. When it was gone, I could move again. Rule 6: leave before nightfall. Always. After dark, the forest belongs to something else. Shadows stop matching their sources. Sounds arrive before they are made. Time loosens, stretching and folding in on itself. I saw the warden once at the edge of dusk. It was tall, faceless. Its body was a patchwork of bark, bone, and hanging moss. It did not pursue me. It did not threaten. It waited. Waiting was enough. I left that evening with minutes to spare. As I crossed the boundary of the trees, the pressure lifted. The air felt thin and human again. Behind me, the forest closed ranks. It let me go. Not because I was forgiven, but because the rules had been satisfied. I wish I could say I followed the rules perfectly after that. I did not. Not because I became brave. Because I became tired. Tired of walking carefully. Tired of hearing my name drift through the trees. Tired of feeling watched every time I blinked. Tired people make mistakes. It happened late in the afternoon, when the light turned thin and cold. I was trying to move back toward a safer section of trail. Something familiar. Something that felt human. My compass failed again, wobbling like it could not agree with reality. The GPS kept recalculating, as if the map itself was embarrassed. Then the voice returned. My name. Soft. Close. Not shouted. Not angry. Conversational. Hey, it said. Like someone stepping out from behind me. Like someone I would turn around for without thinking. It sounded like my friend Mark. The same tone. The same calm patience. Hey, it said again, with a faint laugh beneath it. Like I was overreacting. And my body betrayed me. My mouth opened. I did not answer with words. I made a sound. A quiet yes. The forest went still. Not quiet. Still. Like everything had been waiting for that moment. For 1 second the world sharpened. Every leaf edge. Every crack in the bark. Then the temperature dropped so fast, it felt like cold water poured down my spine. I started moving immediately. The voice did not follow. It moved. It began calling from different directions at once, bouncing through the trees. Hey! Over here. Wrong way. Stop. Do not do that. Some voices were familiar. Some were strangers. Some were almost voices. Like something trying to remember how to speak. The forest changed. I watched it happen. The trail narrowed. Brush pushed inward. Roots rose from the soil like knuckles. Trees leaned toward each other as if whispering. I tried to keep my pace steady, but my feet caught on things that had not been there before. When I looked back, the trail behind me was gone. Not hidden. Gone. Only trunks and shadow remained, as if the forest erased my footprints the moment I made them. My throat tightened. My hands shook so badly, I could barely grip my pack straps. I repeated one thought over and over. Leave before nightfall. Always. I pushed forward until my lungs burned. Then I saw the cairn. It stood in the middle of what should have been the trail. Balanced stones stacked waist high. Perfectly placed. It had not been there minutes earlier. The moment I saw it, the pressure returned. Heavy enough to make my eyes sting. I stopped. I remembered the rule. If you feel watched, you are. Stop moving. So I stood there, listening to my heartbeat pound inside my chest. The voices stopped. The silence that followed was worse. Because I heard something else. A slow creak. Not wood. A joint. Like bone moving under weight. It came from behind the trees ahead beyond the cairn. Then the smell hit me. Sap. Sweet. Then sour, rot beneath it. Damp earth. Something old. Every instinct told me to run, but the pressure held me still. Then it stepped out. It stood between the trees. Not moving. Not breathing. It did not chase me. It waited. Like it knew there was nowhere left to run. It was tall. Too tall. Its proportions were wrong, like it had been stretched. Its skin looked like bark, but cracked and layered. Pale wood showed beneath like something dead. It had no face. Not blurred. None. Where eyes should have been there was only smooth surface. And yet I knew it was looking at me. Its limbs were long. The joints bent the wrong way. Knees folding backward. Elbows angling unnaturally. Strips hung from its shoulders. Moss maybe. Or hair. Or something that used to be one of those things. It stood perfectly still. Then it tilted its head. Not curiosity. Recognition. And I understood the truth. The rules were not there to protect me. They were terms. I had broken one. I had answered. The forest had the right to respond. The air around it shimmered faintly. My breath came out white. My hands went numb. I could not speak. I could not pray. It shifted its weight. One step. The ground did not crunch. The leaves did not move. It did not walk like an animal. It moved like the forest repositioning itself. Behind it, the trees pulled closer together, closing gaps, sealing exits. The cairn in front of me leaned. Stones clicked softly. The pressure in my skull intensified until my vision pulsed. Then the voice returned. My name. But this time it was mine. My own voice copied perfectly coming from the faceless thing. Come closer, it said calmly. My foot lifted before I realized it. Panic snapped me awake. I stumbled backward, breaking the stillness rule. The forest reacted instantly. Branches snapped. Wind rushed through the canopy. The cairn collapsed into stone. And the thing moved. Not fast like an animal. Fast like a shadow. One moment it stood between the trees. The next it was closer, and I did not see how. The air dropped again. My ears rang. My legs remembered how to run. I ran. There was no trail. Every direction looked the same. Trees. Brush. Fading light. The forest flattened itself into a maze. I crashed through ferns, tripped over roots that rose like traps. My pack slammed into my back. My lungs burned. Behind me there were no footsteps. That was the worst part. Because I could feel it. The watching pressure surrounded me above and below, like the forest itself had become a hand closing around my throat. I did not know where I was going. I only knew I could not stop. Then I saw it. A new trail. Wide. Clean. Open. The rule screamed in my head. Never follow a trail that was not there before. But the dark was coming. And behind me was something colder. I hesitated. The forest whispered. So I stepped onto the trail. Immediately everything changed. The air thinned. The light dimmed. Sound vanished. Even my breathing felt distant. The trees leaned inward so tightly I could barely move my arms. The path curved endlessly, always hiding what came next. Then I realized the truth. This trail was not leading out. It was leading deeper. The thing did not follow behind. It appeared ahead, between the trees, waiting, patient, as if it had known I would choose wrong. My knees nearly gave out. I turned back. The trail behind me was gone. Only dense brush remained. The forest had closed the door. The thing tilted its head once more. And in my own voice it said my name. Soft. Gentle. Like someone calling me home. I do not remember how I got out. That is the truth. I remember the trail collapsing behind me like a door closing. I remember the trees leaning inward. The air thinning. I remember hearing my own voice calling my name from somewhere that did not have a mouth. Then there are gaps. Whole sections of memory missing. Like pages torn out and left behind. The next clear thing I remember is light. Not forest light. Street light. Yellow and human. I was lying on gravel near the edge of a service road. My pack was half open. My hands were curled inward like claws. My throat burned as if I had been screaming for hours. My lips were cracked and bleeding. My skin was so cold that touching myself felt unreal. A man in a reflective vest stood over me. He was talking, but his words sounded distant, like they were coming through water. Then I understood him. He said, "Do not move. You are safe now." Safe. The word felt wrong. They told me later that a maintenance crew found me during a routine check near a gated logging road. They said I was dehydrated, hypothermic, delirious. The explanation was clean and comfortable. A solo hiker went too far, got lost, panicked, exposure, fear, hallucination. People like stories that fit inside a sentence. I nodded when they spoke. I signed the papers. I thanked the medics. A ranger asked if I had been drinking or using anything. His eyes moved to the scratches on my arms, the bruises around my wrists, the dirt packed beneath my fingernails. I told them I tripped. I told them I blacked out. I told them what they needed to hear. But there was something I did not tell anyone. When they lifted my sleeve to check my pulse, there was a mark on my skin. Not a wound. A pattern, raised slightly like scar tissue, shaped like roots. It wrapped around my wrist and disappeared into my palm, branching toward my fingers. No one said anything about it. But I saw the hesitation. The way the medic paused. The way the ranger looked a moment too long before turning away. Like they recognized it. They drove me to the station. Gave me warm blankets and a paper cup of coffee that tasted like metal. A woman from Search and Rescue asked me to point out where I had been on a map. I tried. Nothing lined up. The trails felt wrong. The landmarks were missing. When I drew a circle where I remembered the stone markers, her pen stopped. She quietly pulled the map back and said, "You should not go back there." Not that I could not. That I should not. I went home 2 days later with antibiotics and a warning about respecting nature. A friend picked me up and tried to joke about it. I laughed where I was supposed to. I did not sleep. Not really. Silence feels different now. At night when the apartment settles, I can still feel it. That pressure. Like being watched. I keep my curtains closed. I leave lights on in rooms I am not using. Sometimes I catch myself standing perfectly still, holding my breath for no reason.
Waiting.
Sometimes late at night I smell pine. Sharp and fresh. Impossible in the city. Once I woke up and found dirt near my front door. A smear across the floor, like something had been dragged inside. I told myself it was my shoes. I cleaned it anyway. Twice. Then there are the footsteps. Outside my window. Slow. Measured. I live on the 3rd floor. Sometimes I hear my name. Not loud. Not threatening. Just familiar. Like someone speaking softly through a door. I never answer. I learned that. They say it was just a hiking accident. Exposure. Panic. Hallucination. But sometimes at night I smell pine. I hear footsteps outside my window. And when I close my eyes, I feel the forest breathing. Waiting. Because I am still marked. And one day it will come to collect.